Chapter 1. Jack Swan sat in the oakwood chair, one hand on the throat of a wine bottle, the other fingering the trigger of a .44 Magnum. He had no idea where he was or how he came to be there, only that he was in an apartment on the second story of a building located within the confines of what the human race called New York City. Initially, he thought he had picked up the .44 to kill himself. Send a bullet straight through his head, cover the glass behind him in a dark red liquid accompanied by bits of stringy brain matter. He was hoping that maybe it would look similar to white canvas that's had a bucket of red paint thrown over it, but being ex-cop, he knew there was a difference. He had thought he had picked up the .44 to kill himself, and that state of mind existed right up until the barrel was in his mouth and pointing at the back of his throat. But a thought came to him in that moment that made him stop. Wasn't this all a bit cliché? Sure it was. Ex-cop sitting down somewhere with a bottle of alcohol and a handgun wanting to pull the trigger. It was like a novel with the words stamped on the front. Kid grows up reading detective magazines and watching shows like The X-Files, joins the force, helps out the big guys until he gets promoted to one, finally breathing a sigh of relief now that he has the title of detective. He spends the next 20 years walking through the halls, everyone shouting a greeting, "Morning, Detective Swan," or "How are you going today, Detective Swan? Would you like a cup of coffee today, Detective Swan? How much would you like me to kiss your ass today, Detective Swan?" And he had the partner, and he solved the cases. And when he got home, his mind just couldn't stand being alone too long, because he had seen so much that he was scarred by the endless images. The word in a nutshell: cliché. But this time around, it wasn't just the images that made him think of the suicide. He also happened to be the last man on Earth. Well, he didn't know if that was specifically true. He figured that either he was the last man or one of the last. Jack couldn't remember the end of the world. He came to the conclusion that either his memory had blocked it out, or perhaps he was simply just too drunk to remember it in its entirety. Bits and pieces came to him, screams in the dark, gunshots, visions of things burning. At one stage, he recalled that he had to use his handgun on something. Someone recalled running. From where and to where, he didn't know. Alleyways, people, water, buildings, cars, blood. That last one is the clearest. Blood in front of him, almost seeming to glow on the black bitumen road. Shock sweeping through him and grabbing at his heartstrings, tugging them like the organ was a puppet on the small stage. He wasn't quite sure why it had caused him so much shock to see the blood. Many times before that, he had ventured out on cases that contained horrifying images 10 times the psychological effect that that puddle of blood had had. The conclusion he had come to was that maybe it was somebody that he knew, a friend, a relative, a girlfriend perhaps. None of it mattered now anyway. He was stuck in an apartment. The whispers were talking about him. He was convinced of it. He was hearing the plans of what they were going to do when he finally emerged from the apartment. How they were going to grab him, end his life, feast on him until all that remained was a pile of torn clothes covering what remained of a blood-stained skeleton. The remains would sit there, bathing in the sun for a couple of weeks, months. Maybe survivors would come along, find the bones. One of them would call him a poor bastard, while the others checked him out for valuables. He wouldn't be buried in the ground, and he wouldn't be missed. Well, it's not like anyone would miss me anyway, right? I mean, look around. It's the goddamn end of the fucking world. Jack Swan laughed hysterically, his arms out in front of him as if he was going to put them around somebody. The laughter increased, Soon, he was leaning back in the chair, holding his abdominal muscles. Yep, the end of the fucking world, alright. The smile now fading from his face, he lowered his eyes to the revolver. It was still lying on the table in that face-down position, the chrome reflecting the sunlight that was coming through the glass window, and the barrel facing the other side of the room. Reaching his hand out, Jack picked it up, wrapped his index finger around the trigger, and placed the barrel between his lips. He was now the closest he was ever going to be to pulling the lever that would end his life. No longer caring about the cliché image. No longer caring about survival. If he had to put another spoonful of that canned shit in his mouth, he would not be able to down it. The taste made him dry reach. Having run out of actual food a week before, he had found some cat food in one of the shelves of the kitchen, and had been eating that. Each mouthful felt like he was putting a gigantic slimy slug on his tongue, accompanied by some sort of disgusting muscle tissue that's been sitting out in the sun too long, zapping it of hydration, and replacing that hydration with a pasty jelly-like sauce. No sound. No blood splattering against the window alongside the brain matter. No body falling from the chair. There was only the sound of the hammer clicking against the empty space where the bullet should have been. Opening his eyes and sighing, he placed the gun on the table again and took another swig of wine. Attempt 1. Bullet missing from the chamber. He made the mental note and leaned back in the chair again. Jack was playing a deadly game of Russian roulette with himself. After he had inspected what ammunition remained and discovered that he had only one bullet left, he had loaded it into the chamber, spun it several times, then pointed the gun into his mouth. That was when the cliché thoughts had started, and his mind had thought twice. The most recent attempt was attempt 1. He intended to keep trying until he got it right, and his life was ended. He shut his eyes then and listened. What he got in response was the whispers. He tried his best to put them out of his mind, and after that, he tried his best to numb his mind of it. Numb his mind of everything, the whispers, the room, the gun, the alcohol that had taken its toll since he started to drink the bottle half an hour, 45 minutes before. He numbed everything until he was deep inside his mind, a place he didn't recognize as one he had been before. Almost a hypnotic state. Close your eyes. Count backwards from 10. Focus on my voice. You are now back to when there was something to look forward to. The real world. What do you see? What do you see? He followed the hypnotic state down further. Whether this was a type of sleep or not, he couldn't figure out, but he followed it down anyway. Down, down, down he went. And suddenly, it seemed he wasn't in his mind, but in real life. No. A memory